Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be making the historic names component in our baby name generator website so that you can see all the historic names that you've selected. So in this video we are going to be creating this historic name section of the website. So as you can see I've got no data here, but as I click new name we have a running list of all the names that get added. So as I click here, you know, I can see all of the historic names in our website. So the first thing we are going to need to do in our website is add. I type in store.get state. You can see in our state we don't have it anyway, we only have the current name and filter. So what we're going to need to do is add a part in our Redux store that includes the historic name. So what I'm going to do is come down here and add a history component to our Redux store. Call this historic names. So this will point to a reducer called, put it above this one. So const historic names is state equals, I guess this will just be a list, right? And we're basically going to lift and shift kind of what we do here. But let's take this out because we don't need this. And this will be something like add historic name, and this will obviously do something. I'll come back to this in a second. What I'm going to do is go over to our actions also now, actions, and basically just make a action for this. So add historic name, there we go, and this is going to be called add historic name. So now we have access to that. Let's export that also. So that should be that. We now have this in here. Okay, so what we want to do in here is basically get the action.payload and put that into a list already, and then we essentially just want to concatenate each new historic name into this. So if I do concat, this will be state dot historic names, is that what I called it? History. And also I only want to keep the last 10 items. So if I do slice the last 10, that should only ever give us the last 10 historic names. Sorry, this doesn't need to be state.history actually, because the state that's passed in is going to be the history anyway. So action.payload. So it's basically we're creating a list with the action.payload, and then we're concatenating onto that, or concatenating state onto that. So our new name will always be the first one on the list, and then we're just taking a slice of that. And what's this complaining about? Nothing. Cool. So now if I go store.get state in our thing, you can see that we have a history here, which is an array which will just keep all of our historic names in. So we can leave that there like that for the minute. We're going to come into here and we're going to make a new container called saved names, because we're also going to put the favorite section down here, because if you go here you can see I've also got favorites as well. So we basically got history and favorites. So I'm going to call these kind of like saved names. Let's make a saved names container. That's going to be the same as one of these, so we'll just call this saved names. This is called saved names. Let's go into our containers, new file, saved names.js. We can pretty much lift and shift one of these into here. So I don't need any mapped dispatch yet, but I am going to need the names. So if I go state.history, that should give me all my historic names. So we can leave that one in. This state should props. I'm going to leave that as null for the minute because I can't think of stuff we need here. This is going to point to, should we call this saved names as well? Yeah. So this is going to be components saved names, and let's call this saved names. We don't need any of these actions just yet. We might need them later, but we don't need them now. So let's make this new component. So in components I'm going to make a new folder called saved names, add an index.js. We can basically lift and shift this from a different file. Import saved names from saved names, export default saved names. That's that done. Let's go into saved name now, make a new file called saved names.jsx. kind of just take the skeleton of this and paste this into here. So let's make a section and call it hi. Don't need any of this, don't need any of this, don't need any of this. But we will need to add this all back in a second, but in the correct order. From React, import saved names.css while we're here. And then let's also make a new file called savenames.css. This should be fine. So if I reload this now, we shouldn't get any errors, but why is it not appearing at the bottom? Because I've not saved this file. Can't resolve, save names. Okay, so I just deleted that and re-added that, and it sometimes gets itself in a bit of a state, but as you can see down the bottom now, got our little hi, so that means our save name stuff is all being wired in correctly, so that's good. So yeah, we're going to want two things in here, because we're going to want our, basically, I'm going to make a historic names component, and then later we're going to have a favorite names, but that will probably come in the next video. So let's give this a class name of saved names. Let's go over to save names.css. Save names.css is going to be equal to display flex flex direction row and what's the, how do you spell, and justify content space evenly, so legit. So when I add basically the favorite names component into here, it will be fine. Let's make this historic names.jsx component also, but this says history. For now, let's just call this historic names, historic names, historic names. Cool, that comes from that. Import. Cool, so we now have history there, so we're basically rendering our history component. So our history component is going to need obviously the historic names to build up this list. But first off, what we actually need to do is obviously when we click this new name button, we're going to need to add our historic names to the state. So what I'm going to do is come back into app.js, go into the buttons container. So you can see we're matching dispatch. So we're going to need to add our new dispatch item here that basically says, you know, we made that add historic names action, add historic name. So we need to add this, and then we need to import that from actions, which is up here, and we just want to pass that the name, and that will just pass a name in. Why is that complaining? Because I've not got that. So we now have this add historic name action that gets passed into buttons, so we can pop this out of here now. Nobody uses that, but what we want to do is when we click this new name button on handle baby name changes, and I want to add the new name, is that going to be the first name and the second name is what I'm thinking, or is it just going to be the first? Yeah, so annoyingly here, when we do add historic names, this is only going to be the forename that we're going to add here, isn't it? Because new name here is just the first name. So we also need to get the surname. And in order to do that, I need to pass in the current name. So you know, if I do store.getState, the current name will obviously give me the surname. So we're going to have to go back. I can actually rip it out of here, can't I? State.current name. Because then that will pass it through to buttons, which will then come into here, and then I can do current name.forename, I think, and I can check that if I go store.getState. If I go into my object, I have the current name, which has, yeah, forename and surname in here. So there we go. So now I'm adding this every time I click that button, and I can just validate this if I refresh now and click new name, new name, new name, and then go store.getState. I should have a history object here, which has, yeah, perfect, an array of objects which has forename, 5 of them, because I clicked the button 5 times. Oh, undefined. Why are you undefined? Because that is actually forename. Spelling mistake there. Oh, it's not the forename, it's the surname. Wow, I'm having a horrible day today. There we go. History this time has WSE. Yeah, software engineer. Cool, nice one. And if we change that, if I change that to like Jones, for example, and go new name, and then do store.getState again, you should see that the history is built up of Jones and then software engineer. Cool, so now we basically just need to come into the historic names component and just display this like a list. So what I'm going to do is go back to our kind of our alphabet names button, because we basically did something extremely similar for that, didn't we? Because we had to create this list. So I'm going to lift and shift this into historic names from Ant Design. Our source is going to be, or data source can be historic names, so we need to basically pass this through now. So we have historic names, which gets passed through to save names. So from here we can say, I just want to pop out that from props, and then I can pass that in as names, historic names into historic names, and then here I can say const names, pop that out of props, and pop that into there. Probably want a column to be 1 this time. Yeah, let's come back to this in a second. So the key is going to be the name dot. I think I can probably, yeah, let's just get rid of all this for a second. Let's just say key is equal to name, and then this is equal to name, and then hopefully we should get something rendering on the screen. Right, I'm going to kind of lift and shift this from the one I did earlier. So if I pop this in, this is how it used to work. So let's, for the minute, take that out and see if we can get something working. Cool, so I've got historic names. Nice that it is displaying some stuff. So we have data source of names, we have the label, which is this historic names here, the render item for each name. So basically I'm iterating over the names that we pass in, but each name, I want you to make a list item, and the list item meta is the title, it's going to be the full name, and the description is going to be the surname. I seem to be missing that, don't I? How do they do it in here? Oh, is it because there's no full names? I bet you've spelled it wrong. Yeah, I knew it. Spelling mistakes. There we go, so now we have the historic name section. When there's no data, it will display no data. So this is basically just looping through that and then creating a list item meta. And then I click new name, and you can see down here, it's adding the title. So the first name is the title, and then it kind of slightly fading out the bottom bit, which is kind of what we did in our old one. You can see Samuel Jones. So let's add this little button now. So in order to add the button, we need to add stuff to list item. We need to add stuff to list item. Now, the way I did this before was I added actions, but I know that the API has changed now. Let me do it like this, and I definitely know that icons changed. So I've got a heart, yeah, cool. So in order to get icons, we basically need to pass them in like this now. So you can come up here and say import. I think it was heart outlined I used from at and design icons, something like this. I can never remember, so I'll just go back to the documentation. And I want the heart outlined, which is heart outlined, which is that, and then I put that in there, like so, and then if I go back to my React app, ooh, we have our little nice heart icons, which is all good. This heart button is going to be our add to favorites, which is going to be the last video of this series, where we'll come in and we'll click the add to favorites button, and there'll be another row here, which is basically add to favorites. So yeah, cool, that's pretty much it there, because we've now got the historic name section with no data in it, and then when I click new name, you can see it goes through, and Aurelia software engineer is there, and then this little heart button will be the last video of the series, where we'll create another list here, which will have kind of all the favorited names that we've made. So there we go. That's a pretty simple and easy one, and you can see if I keep pressing this button loads of times, because we put a cap of 10, you can see it only makes 10 items in here, and it won't like forever grow. And if you want to reduce that even more, you know, you can come in here and just change that. So let's say like 5, for example, and then every time it will, if I refresh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can see we're only limited to 5 every time now. Cool, there we go. So that was kind of a quick tutorial just showing you how to add the historic names component. None of that stuff should be new. It should all be kind of just building on stuff that we've done before, but I just wanted to give you the kind of final feature because that was in the original website. So there we go. Yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and like and subscribe. It helps me out. Comment down below if you've got any comments or feedback. That would be really appreciated. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day. See you later.